Okay, hello and welcome. This is a special webinar for our grade subscribers. If you're watching in India, then it's 1:30. It's 8 o'clock here in New Zealand. I'm wearing a jersey for a change because it's quite cold here at the moment. So it's suddenly the overnight temperatures have gone down to 0 here in New Zealand. If this is the first time you're watching a webinar with me, my name is Greg. I've been an English teacher for the last 15 years. 13 of those years was spent in a much colder country than New Zealand. I lived in South Korea for 13 years. It becomes very cold in winter there. But anyway, it is cold today, but hopefully we're going to provide you with something which is going to help your IELTS preparation. You can see here today the focus is going to be writing task 1 for general training. Last Thursday, I provided a webinar on writing task 1 for academic test takers. So if you are an academic test taker, this may be beneficial for you. I think some of the processes for the letter, which we're going to do today, are very similar to the way that you might write a writing task 2 essay. But I want to give you a very simple structure for writing this letter, and I'm going to provide a model answer, right? So if you want to rewatch this webinar, you can find the replay on YouTube and on the grade site, I believe, as well. And at any time while you're watching, please feel free to ask questions. As for the model answer, we have Tom who's going to dictate it for us, and that'll be uploaded onto the grade blog. So let's start by revealing the question. Okay, I'll read this out to you in case you have any difficulty seeing the letters. So we're told a situation. And this situation is quite a common one, right? So you recently went to the cinema. When you got home, you realized that your cell phone had fallen out of your pocket whilst watching the movie. Write a letter to the cinema manager. In your letter, and here we have 3 bullet points. Number 1, or first bullet point, explain how and where you lost your phone. Second bullet point, describe the phone. And finally, the third bullet point, say what you would like the cinema manager to do to help you find it. Now, when you have this letter, which you have to write for writing task 1, general training test, you'll almost always get 3 bullet points. Just keep it as simple as you can. Answer those 3 bullet points. I'm going to give you a very basic structure to write this letter, and this should be the same structure, simple structure that you should always use. So you paraphrase the statement, right? So that's the one similarity with writing task 2. And then you preview the main bullet points, right? So we start with a very short introduction and a preview of what we're going to talk about in the letter. Then it's simple. Main body paragraph 1 is going to be an explanation of how and where you lost the phone. Main body paragraph 2 is the description of the phone. And then main body paragraph 3 is the request of the manager. So you just have to make sure you address those bullet points exactly in the letter. The other thing to consider, this is a letter to the manager of a cinema. So this means it's going to be formal in tone, right? So the opposite of formal is informal. Right, so we have 2 choices when we write these letters, and it just depends on the scenario. So we're writing to the manager of a cinema. We don't know that manager, so it's going to be formal in tone. This means that we're going to use certain words. We're not going to use any slang. It's going to be very polite. Informal means that you'd be writing to a friend or possibly a family member. So those are the 2 kind of situations that we're often given. You're writing to a friend, or you're writing to the manager of the store or manager of a building, someone like that. So I'm going to go through and show you a model answer for this. Now, if you have written an English letter before, especially a formal one, in the IELTS, you were just given the word dear, and then we're given a little blank. So you could put in dear Mr. or dear Mrs. But this is what I would do. I would just say dear manager. Right, so that is fine. So also it's identifying that we've read the scenario carefully and we know who the letter is intended for. If we put a person's name, then it doesn't really show that as well. It's better to use the title of the person that we're going to, in this case, the job title of the person that the letter is for. So as I said, we're now going to paraphrase this situation. I like to begin with this phrase here. I am writing to. I'm going to underline that because as we're writing task 2, the more set phrases that you can memorize and use again and again on test day, the better. So I am writing to. We can use that in any letter, right? Especially formal one. I'm writing to, and what am I writing to do? Inform. So this is what I mean by formal tone. We're going to choose words which are possibly what you might describe as more academic, but definitely nothing slang, right? So more informal might be, I'm writing to let you know, right? So let you know versus inform. This is a more formal word choice. Now, when I look at this situation, what I do is I have to use some imagination, as you would have to do on test day. I'm pretty sure that if you're watching at home, you also have a cell phone, in other words, smartphone. So I'm just going to use my own smartphone as the base for this story, right? So, because then I have a better idea of what I'm writing about. I'm going to change a couple of things to make it suit better with the situation, but I'm just going to write down the kind of phone that I have, which is a black iPhone 8. And just like with writing task 2, the trick here is to use a wide range of grammar and vocabulary. We're given a very, I think, quite old-fashioned expression, cell phone. I don't think people use that expression much in New Zealand anymore. So I'm going to paraphrase that as smartphone. And this is actually the phone I'm staring into when I'm looking at you on camera. So I'm writing to inform you of a black iPhone 8 smartphone. Then what happened? Here is my complex sentence that I believe I lost Now, they've used the word cinema. This is possibly more British English, but we can also say theatre, right? Even this might make it a better word choice, movie theatre. Right, so here in New Zealand, we tend to use more British style English. So movie theatre is a term that I grew up with. And again, why not just use it? Because I know that expression, and then I'm using a wider range of vocabulary. Movie theatre, and we're told recently, so instead of saying recently, I'm just going to say last night. Right, so let me review this first sentence. So I'm going to underline that, because this is making it into a complex sentence. Some other things which I spoke about, I've used the expression smartphone, which has been paraphrased from, which is a synonym for cell phone. And again, movie theatre is paraphrasing or a synonym for cinema, right? So, and here as well. So I'm starting to describe the situation in my introduction. Then, because this is a formal letter, I want to be very, very polite. The purpose of this letter is to make a request, and I'm going to begin with I would be, because would and could are the more polite way of making requests. I would be most appreciative. And I'm going for another complex sentence. If you, so as I mentioned, would and could, formal requests, help me to find it. Now, I know down here, we have the expression help you find it. You can also add in the, to make an infinitive, help someone to, right? So just again, I'm just changing the grammar a little bit. So here I've created an infinitive. And just to review as well, even in my introduction to the rest of this letter, I have two complex sentences. Now, I think a lot of these letters that you write in the general training writing task 1 will be a request. So again, I think this sentence here in particular, this could be the type of sentence that you could memorize and then just change to suit the situation of the letter that you have on test day if you're making a request, right? So I would be most appreciative if, and then what the request is using could, right? So again, just with the letter, keep it as simple as possible. Have as many phrases that you have memorized that you can just adapt on test day. Let's go back to our outline. right? So I'm just going to tick them off as we go through. So introduction, done, right? So there's our introduction right here. In case you are not aware, it's 150 words. I can tell you because I counted the words before. I'm in excess. I have more than 150 words. And I'm going to show you how you can make sure that you have that minimum word count as well. Let's move on to main body 1, where I'm going to explain how and where I lost my phone. Now, I have to base this information on the situation I'm given. I'm going to need to paraphrase this situation more as well. So main body 1, I'll put that up here so you know what I'm, if you're watching this as a replay. So, how and where? I attended, again, more formal word choice than I went to. I attended the 10 p.m. screening. We could say showing or screening of. Now, I'm trying to write italics. This is meant to be italics. It looks a little strange when I'm handwriting it. Now, if you're wondering about the spelling here of Pet Cemetery, it's a deliberate misspell, right? So if you're using the grade system will say you spelled cemetery incorrectly. You can ignore that, right? If you were to do a deliberate misspell. So movie titles quite often have deliberate misspells. When we have the title of a movie, if you are doing your test on a digital format, put the titles in italics, right? So italics means when we just have a little angle in our font, right? So this is meant to be italics. So I attended the 10 p.m. screening of Pet Cemetery in Theatre 5, right? So when we go to the movies, many movie theatres have more than one screen, right? So Theatre 5 just means the name of the screen, right? So now, what happened? I remember. Now, this is where I'm just trying to add a bit more information in so I don't just want to copy exactly what we have here. So I'm thinking the situation is in a movie theater. What would I do if I went to a movie with my smartphone? I remember turning my smartphone onto silent mode. I think that's okay. When we go to the movies, we can just put it onto silent. I don't think we have to turn it off completely. Silent mode. Again, I'm just trying to demonstrate more vocabulary. Here I'm making a compound sentence with and putting it into, so here we have to stick to the same scenario, but I'm going to make a little bit more information here. My right pocket, or the right pocket, so instead of just using the word pocket, I'm at least adding a bit more vocabulary in. The right pocket of my jacket. Right, so instead of just saying pocket, then what I've done is I've made it into a phrase, right? The right pocket of my jacket. Before, now the two keywords here are film and movie, and I'm just going to use those interchangeably to demonstrate more vocabulary. Before the film began. So next sentence, when I returned home, my phone. Now, obviously, smartphone is another word that I don't want to repeat all the time. So I'm just going to use smartphone, cell phone, and phone, and just try and rotate the use of those words. Was no longer in my pocket. So, again, I'm trying to make longer sentences, another compound sentence using so. I think that this is actually a compound complex sentence, right? So I'll underline this. We did a webinar on compound complex sentences. This is our conjunction to make a compound sentence. And here we're having using a subordinating conjunction, right? So again, I'm just given the simple situation, I'm trying to expand the use of my language to use complex sentences as much as I can. I think that, and I'm referencing here, instead of saying my phone, I'm using it. It must have fallen out while I was watching the movie. So in particular, with this sentence here, this is a particularly long sentence with many different subordinating clauses. It's all grammatically correct. And yeah, just that's the challenge. You take a simple scenario, simple situation, but you still have to make your language as complex as you can. There is main body one. So this is my explanation of how and where I lost the phone. So we can put a tick next to that. And then we're going to move on to the description of the phone. Okay, so we're on to main body two, where I am going to describe the phone. Now, again, I told you I'm basing this description off my own phone, which is an iPhone 8. So I'm going to repeat that with a topic sentence of sorts. My black iPhone 8 If you're wondering why I'm using a small I, lowercase I, that's just how iPhone is stylized. I believe it's actually lowercase I and uppercase P, right? So my iPhone 8 smartphone is also in a black protective case. I would actually show you my phone, but I'm filming on it at the moment. So again, just make this as easy as you can for yourself and use examples which you know well. This is where I'm adapting it a little bit. I just want to give a bit more information, and I want to use a complex sentence, so which has a small yellow. Again, we've been asked to describe the phone, so this is why I'm using a lot of adjectives, right? A small yellow Batman symbol. On it, right? So yes, I do have an iPhone 8. It is black. It is in a black protective case, but my one doesn't have a Batman symbol on it. That's just something that I'm using, some imagination I'm using there. Again, the reason I want to do that is to make a complex sentence. And another complex sentence here, if, and I'm thinking about my smartphone, this bit is true. If you press the home button, comma, you will see, again, I'm imagining that the manager of the cinema is going to do this. You will see a photo of my daughter. And I'm just making these sentences as complex as I can. Who has long brown hair and brown eyes, right? So to me, this was actually a little challenging. Like, how can I describe my phone? So then I thought, oh, I can describe the picture, which is on the home screen. And again, I've tried to meet the challenge of making my language as complex as possible. This is why I've used if and who, right? So we can now say that we've done the second main body paragraph. We've described the phone. So we can put a tick next to main body 2. And we're on to the last one. So now we're going to make a request of the manager. Okay, so the last main body paragraph, we're asked in that bullet point to say what you would like the cinema manager to do to help you find it, right? So this is our very polite request. To make it even politer, I'm adding in this. I apologize. Right, so formal letter, I want to be apologetic because I'm asking the manager to spend his or her time to help find my phone, which I mistakenly lost. I apologize for the inconvenience, but I would be very, so I'm not going to say most appreciative, I'm going to paraphrase that with a synonym, very grateful. Again, another complex sentence. If you could see, if, right? So lots of complex language here. If any of your staff or customers turned in, right? If you're not familiar with this expression, turned in, it just means when someone finds something and hands it over. Turned in my phone. Now, perhaps you have a lost, so I'm thinking about losing things, and then the expression lost and found department came into mind. Perhaps you have a lost and found department. This is a question, right? And I'm going to wrap up this paragraph with a final last polite request. So could you could and would for polite request. Just remember that one. Could you please let me know if, right? So there's lots of opportunities to use complex sentences with if. You find my smartphone right, so again, phone, smartphone, I'm rotating through those different terms. as soon as possible. Okay, there we have it. So I've asked what I would like the cinema manager to do to help me find it. But I've been most polite about it because this is a formal request, a formal letter. So we'll put a tick for main body 3. Now, one other thing which I was not able to demonstrate because I'm on a limited sized whiteboard is that between the introduction, between main body 1, 2, and 3, I would always leave a line, right? So that line spacing makes it really obvious to the examiner that you're paragraphing, right? So always leave a line, writing task 1, writing task 2, between your paragraphs. Not quite done yet, even though I have answered all the bullet points. We've been asked to make a formal letter, which means I'm going to have to sign it off in a formal way. So again, after main body 3, I would leave a line space, and I'm going to be polite again. Again, I am most grateful. So I've had grateful and appreciative. I could have said appreciative here if I wanted to, for your help. And this is something, another phrase which you can use in most letters. I look forward to your reply. Right, so I'm going to underline that because this is something which you could use in most of your writing task 1 letters for general training. Now, this is just one that I use for formal letters. Yours sincerely. Then I write my name, right? So name. You put your name there if you wanted to use this model. Make it more obvious, I'll put your name. Now, some of you might be watching and think, can I use kind regards? Yeah, that would be fine. That's also formal. It's probably a little warmer than yours sincerely. This is just one which I was taught, so it comes naturally to me. On the other hand, if you're going for an informal letter, you might just say, look forward to seeing you, or something like this, right? So these are the more formal ones. Even for informal, you could just finish your letter with regards, right? So there we have it. There are our letters, or our letter. So I just wanted to let you know of the upcoming schedule. So on Sunday, which is May the 24th, I believe, I'll put everything here. Tuesday, then Thursday. I think I need to check the date, sorry. Okay. It is definitely, next week is the 28th. This will be the 26th. On Sunday, we have a replay, right? And that'll be writing task 2. Next Tuesday is the free webinar for everyone, for the general public. It's going to be reading academic section. Next week, for you guys as subscribers, we're going to look at something different that we haven't done in any webinar yet. We're going to look at a sample of speaking, right? So again, so what will happen with the replay if you wish to watch that on Sunday, it'll always be at the same time, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, 1:30 Indian Standard Time if you're in India, which is 8 p.m. here. This will be a replay from an earlier webinar or replay of an earlier webinar. There will be someone from the website who can take your questions live, right? The general webinar for the public, which I hope you come to as well, will be for a practice session from the grade site for a reading test. The reason we're focusing on academic is because any academic section is very, very similar to what you might expect in section 3 of the general training reading test. And as I mentioned, next Thursday for you, the subscriber, we're going to look at speaking. So I hope wherever you are, you're safe, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, if not then on Thursday. Take care.